Well, I'm going to carry on with D.T. Suzuki's introduction to the Lankavatara Sutra, but this next section, called Relation Between the Various Functions, incorporates a lot of these terms that, as I've indicated in a previous video, are pretty difficult to get a handle on, particularly since there is some overlap in meaning. But let me just slog through it and see what you think, particularly because I think it relates directly to the next section of his intro, which focuses more on the religious significance of some of these terms. So he says, having explained what the various important terms mean and what functions are indicated by them, let us proceed to see in what relationship they stand to one another. The whole system of mental functions is called in the Lanka Sita Kalapa. Sita and Vijnana are here used synonymously. In this mental system, 8 modes of activity are distinguished: Alaya Vijnana, Manas, Manovijnana, and the 5 sense Vijnanas. When these 8 Vijnanas are grouped together under 2 general heads, the one group is known as the perceiving Vijnanas and the other as the object discriminating Vijnana. But in fact, the Vijnanas are not separable into these 2 groups, for perceiving is discriminating. When an individual object is perceived as such, that is, as solid, as colored, etc., discrimination has already taken place here. Indeed, without the latter, the former is impossible, and conversely. Every Vijnana performs these 2 functions simultaneously, which is to say, one functioning is analyzable into 2 ideas, perceiving and discriminating. But it is to be observed that this double activity does not belong to the Alaya Vijnana. Another way of classifying the Vijnanas is according to their lakshana, or modes of being, of which 3 are distinguishable as evolving, as performing deeds, or karma, and as retaining their own original nature. From this viewpoint, all Vijnanas are evolving and deed-performing Vijnanas, except the Alaya, which always abides in its self-nature. For the Vijnanas may cease from evolving and performing deeds for some reason, but the Alaya ever remains itself. The Alaya, according to the Lanka, has 2 aspects: the Alaya as it is in itself, and the Alaya as mental representation. These 2 aspects are also known respectively as incessant and the manifested. The Alaya is incessant because of its uninterrupted existence. It is manifested because of its activity being perceptible by the mind. And by the way, here I'm actually skipping over some of the more complex Sanskrit terminology that he incorporates as sort of synonyms to some of these English words that I'm using, which may make it just a slight tad less complex to follow. But let's go on. From this, we can see that the Alaya is conceived in the Lanka as being absolute in one respect, and in the other as being subject to evolution, or pravritti. It is this evolving aspect of the Alaya that lends itself to the treacherous interpretation of Manas. As long as the Alaya remains in and by itself, it is beyond the grasp of an individual, empirical consciousness. It is almost like emptiness itself, although it ever lies behind all the Vijnana activities, for the latter will cease working at once when the Alaya is taken out of existence. Manas is conscious of the presence behind itself of the Alaya, and also of the latter's uninterrupted working on the entire system of the Vijnanas. Reflecting on the Alaya and imagining it to be an ego, Manas clings to it as if it were reality, and disposes of the reports of the 6 Vijnanas accordingly. In other words, Manas is the individual will to live and the principle of discrimination. So again, remembering that the 8 are the Alaya Vijnana, the Manas, the Manovijnana, and the 5 sense Vijnanas. So the notion of an ego substance is herein, through the Manas, established, and also the acceptance of a world external to itself and distinct from itself, which I think within this Buddhist philosophical psychological framework is viewed as an illusion. The six vijnanas, which are the six sense perception functions, the six vijnanas function, as it were, mechanically when the conditions are satisfied and are not conscious of their own doings. They have no intelligence outside their respective fields of activity, eye, ear, nose, etc. They are not organized in themselves and have no theory for their existence and doings. What they experience is reported to the headquarters with no comment or interpretation. It's an interesting way to put it. Manas sits at the headquarters and, like a great general, gathers up all the information coming from the six vijnanas. For it is he who shifts and arranges the reports and gives orders again to the reporters according to his own will and intelligence. The orders are then faithfully executed. The manas is a double-headed monster. The one face looks toward the alaya and the other toward the vijnanas. He does not understand what the alaya really is. He sees multitudinous there and clings to it as final. The clinging now binds him to a world of particulars. Thus, desire is mother and ignorance is father, and this existence takes its rise. But the manas is also a double-edged sword. When there takes place a turning back, or paravritti, which remember is the spiritual awakening kind of experience that the bodhisattva is encouraged to pursue in some sense through his or her practice, when there takes place a turning back in the manas, that's where the turning back takes place, the entire arrangement of things in the Vijnanakaya or Sitakalapa changes. With one swing of the sword, the pluralities are cut asunder, and the alaya is seen in its native form, that is, as solitary reality, which is from the first beyond discrimination. The manas is not, of course, an independent worker. It is always depending on the alaya, without which it has no reason of being itself. But at the same time, the alaya is also depending on the manas. The alaya is absolutely one, but this oneness gains significance only when it is realized by the manas and recognized as its own supporter. This relationship is altogether too subtle to be perceived by ordinary minds that are found choked with defilements and false ideas since beginningless time. So I think I mentioned in an early video that one of the things about the Lankavatara Sutra is it postulates a whole theory, really, of how we operate in terms of our sensory and mental functioning, and what the sources are of the illusion and ignorance that generates the defilements which block our view of a more enlightened perspective on the cosmos. The manas, backed by the alaya, has been the seat of desire or thirst, trishna, karma, and ignorance. Again, the seat of desire or thirst, karma, and ignorance. The seeds grow out of them and are deposited in the alaya. When the waves are stirred up in the alaya ocean by the wind of objectivity, so interpreted by the manas, these seeds give a constant supply to the uninterrupted flow of the vijnana waters. In this general turmoil in which we sentient beings are all living, the alaya is as responsible as the manas. For if the alaya refuse to take the seeds in that are sent up from the region of the vijnana, manas may not have opportunities to exercise its two fundamental functions, willing and discriminating. But at the same time, it is due to the alaya's self-purifying nature that there takes place a great catastrophe in it, known as turning back. With this turning back in the alaya, manas, so intimately in relation with it, also experiences a transformation in its fundamental attitude toward the vijnanas. The latter are no more regarded as reporters of an external world which is characterized with individuality and manifoldness. This position is now abandoned. The external world is no more adhered to as such, that is, as reality. For it is no more than a mere reflection of the alaya. The alaya has been looking at itself in the manas's mirror. There has been from the very first nothing other than itself. Hence the doctrine of mind only, or citta-matra, or the alaya only. So, good luck if you can fathom that. I think if you can follow the logic and the terminology, it really does give a very elegant sort of characterization of how we end up in the dilemma that we're in terms of our confused, ignorant state, which is so difficult to transcend. And yet, in another sense, we do have easy paths which make it easy to transcend.